All right, hey guys. I'm so glad you guys were able to make it tonight. I know I probably have a bunch of things going on, so kudos to you to come and learn a little bit about real estate. So I kind of want to go a little bit into. I'm going to go a little bit into my background so you guys can get an idea of where I'm coming from, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about real estate and the power of what real estate can do and how it can actually change your life like it did mine. So I was born and raised in Chicago. We moved into the suburbs, I think when I was in eighth grade or so, and came from a middle class family. My parents came from India back in the late 70s. And so they really came with, you know, nothing, but my dad was invited here. He was an engineer. And so we kind of grew up and like Indian parents, they want all of us to become doctors or, it was doctors for us, but some people get the opposite of having engineers or that sort of thing. But so I went and kind of followed the path that my parents had laid out for me, which is, go to college. So I ended up going to college. I don't want to be a doctor, but I don't know what I want to be. So I'm like, all right, I'll just listen to whatever my parents have to say. So whatever path they laid out for me. So I ended up going to UIC. I didn't end up finishing college because I ended up getting married. And then within a couple months of getting married, I was pregnant and then had my first child, within a year of being married. So let's fast forward a little bit, 7, 8 years into my marriage where things were not going well at all. And I had to end up, so now I have two kids at that time. And I had to end up separating from my ex. And kind of the way I had to separate, and if you guys want to know more information on how that happened, I have a book that I wrote called Diaries of a Female Real Estate Investor. It kind of goes into my journey. But basically, I had to separate and leave. Like I had to leave with nothing. Like I am walking into a complete empty house, and had to start my whole life over. I did have a full-time job that was pretty stable, so I had that going for me. My credit was decent, but I had absolutely zero savings, and I had a lot of debt. A lot of it was school debt. Um, so what I decided to do was I was like, okay, how do I make more money? Because I'm walking away with nothing and I have two kids that I solely have to provide for. At the time they were 7, 6, and 8 years old or so. So I started researching and I'm like, okay, before I do that, let me go back and get my undergrad. So I went and finished my degree. And then immediately after that, I'm like, okay, I know I can make more money by getting my MBA. So I go back to school, go back to get my MBA, and I'm all excited when I graduate. And I'm like, okay, wow, like I'm going to make a ton of money. And my employers were happy and all that. They gave me a 15% increase, but all of you guys are in corporate world. 15% increase equates to maybe a couple $100 more every couple weeks after all taxes. So that wasn't going to cut what I thought was, well, or rich, I would say. So then back to the drawing board. I'm like, all right, what do I do? So I started researching online, like how do these people become wealthy, all of that, and everything kind of pointed towards real estate investing. So I started going to these local meetup groups, similar to what kind of Tony does and all of that, and started looking into things. And I ended up taking a class on real estate investing. And from there, I basically did my first transaction within a couple months of joining the course. And since then, I've been able to, so I started investing in 2014. And fast forward today, 2023, I own, I think it's somewhere between 50 and 60 residential homes. Most of them are all in the Chicagoland area. And then I also have some in Florida. So recently I've done new construction builds in an area called Port Charlotte, Florida, where we started from scratch and built duplexes. I have some lots for triplexes as well. And then last year I also went into doing Airbnbs, short-term rentals, midterm rentals, which have been doing phenomenal. And with the Airbnbs, you have to be very careful because in some townships they don't allow short-term rentals, so you have to have like a 30 days or more type of lease. But some townships still do allow it, so that has been like a game changer for me as well. So in 22 years ago, when I hit my 40th property, I decided that that was the right time for me to retire from corporate because I was always working full time the whole time that I was investing. And then once I replaced that income times four, because that's what I felt comfortable with. You know how it is, like when you start making more money, you want to spend more money, right? So I was like, okay, my first goal was 25 properties and I'll retire. Then it was 30, then it was 35. Finally at 40, I was like, okay, I think I'm good. So that's when I retired. And then in 2020 is when I wrote my book, Diaries of a Female Real Estate Investor, which you guys can find on Amazon. And that ended up making it to Amazon bestseller and then Wall Street top 10 as well. So that book talks a little bit more in detail about my journey and all the challenges that I went through because I did this all being a single mother, raising two boys on my own. You know, the father wasn't really in the picture at all, and I was financially supporting them on my own as well. So like how I was able to find the time to do it, you know, being able to go through some of the insecurities that I had and, you know, overcome those, all of that. But I want to talk a little, so that's kind of my background, but I do want to talk a little bit about how I invest and the different strategies that I used. So when I first started, because I had a W-2 income, I had income to help with my day-to-day expenses. So what I did was instead of flipping, I kept everything as a rental. So I would buy a piece of property, and when you buy a property, the key to making this all work is that you have to buy it at a discount. So that is key. If you buy the property at the right price, then 90% of the time you're going to end up making money and it's going to cash flow and all of that. So you buy a property at discount. It's usually a distressed property. So it could be something that's a gut rehab. It could be a cosmetic rehab. It could be a property that maybe somebody's parents passed away and the kids want nothing to do with it and they're willing to let it go for cash, you know, all of that. And you have ways to make, if you don't have cash, that's okay because there's private money lenders and hard money lenders that will loan you the money so that you can buy these pieces of property. So basically you buy it at a discount, and then once you close on it, you gotta make sure that you have money to rehab it. So again, that money is borrowed. So the way I invest is I borrowed 100% of the purchase price and 100% of the rehab price. That's how I was able to be able to start, was because I was able to borrow all of it. And then I would fix it up. So let me give you an example of my first property. I bought it for $75,000. It's in a suburb called Lyons. I don't know if you guys know Lyons that are from Chicago. It's a small suburb near Hillside, near Bellwood. It was a brick 2-bedroom, 1-bath, single-family home. And then I put about $20,000 into it. And then after all the costs, which is like, you know, you have to pay finance fees or closing costs, utilities while you hold the property, all of that. It ended up appraising for about $150,000. So right off the bat, I made close to, you know, whatever that number is, $40,000 in equity. But the nicer thing is that I was able to find a tenant, and my mortgage payment at the time was about $1,000, but it's rented for $1,550. So all expenses, after all expenses, that property cash flows $600 net every single month. So basically what you do is you borrow the money short term, and then you take a long-term loan on it from a bank. It could be a residential, a 30-year, or a commercial 30-year. And usually the interest rates are lower than, you know, borrowing it up front. And then once you refinance it, you have a 30-year mortgage on it. You're getting a lot more rent than expenses. And then you're duplicating that formula over and over and over again, that same formula, to the point where you feel, okay, this is whatever my goal is. Like some people are okay living off of $5,000 a month. Some people are $10,000 a month, right? So the key is to make passive income that you don't have to trade your time for dollars. So it doesn't matter what I'm doing during the day now, I'm always getting that monthly income in. So my goal is to get at least $500 net cash flow per property every month. And so right now I have whatever that is, 50 properties, right? So if you take 50 properties and you calculate that $500 times 50 properties is I think it's $25,000 a month net cash flow right now is what I get from just doing short-term rentals. All passive, all my time is freed up. Now, when I moved to the Airbnb model, instead of a $500 net cash flow, it's been more averaging $1,500 net cash flow. And I have about 10 Airbnb properties. So my actual cash flow is close to $40,000 net every single month. So yeah, you just kind of, figure out what, your goals are. So if you, for example, want to have $10,000 a month coming in net cash flow, then you'll need 20 properties that with loans. Now, there's a way that you could do it where you buy 5 and then you take all your money, all your net cash flow, and you pay it off, and then you have 5 paid off properties. Now you don't have a mortgage, so those 5 properties will bring you roughly $1,000 a month net cash flow. For 5 properties paid off with no mortgage is $5,000 a month. Otherwise, 10 properties not paid off equates to the same, about $5,000 a month as well. So you just kind of figure out what your goals are. But a couple of things I wanted to mention that real estate has done for me is basically it has I was able to retire, so all my time is free now. B, I had a $80,000 school debt because when I went back to school, I had to take loans. So my MBA and my undergrad, I was able to pay off all my debt, and there was a strategy that I used in the middle called wholesales. I'm going to briefly go into it, where you get a property under contract. So over the years, I've gotten really good at finding properties, and there was a point where I had 8, 9, 10 transactions going on at a time while I'm working full time. So you can imagine how crazy that is, right? So I was like, oh my God, I can't do anymore. So what I did was I took the properties that I was getting, got them under contract, and then I took the contract and sold them to another investor who was willing to pay $5, $10, $15, $20,000 more without me closing on it. It's just because the deal was so good that they're willing to buy it. So if I got something under contract for $70,000, and for an investor it still made sense for them to buy it at $90,000, I made $20,000 in the middle. So I did about 20 to 25 wholesales. This was like 4 or 5 years ago. Made that quick cash, and I dumped all that cash into my school loans because I didn't want to touch any of my cash flow money. I was just kind of saving that for more investments in the future. So I took that and paid that off as well. I've also done about 10 to 12 flips, just because in some scenarios it makes sense to, maybe not hold the property in certain areas. So I'm pretty careful about what areas I want to hold properties in. So some areas where I call we usually separate them A, B, C, D. A is for affluent. If you have a property in an affluent area, I'm more likely to keep those. B is your bread and butter, which is like your bridge views or your evergreen parks, hillside lines, those suburbs where mostly people in that area rent. So you have a greater pool of people that are willing to rent. And they're great people. They pay their bills. They take pride in staying at the home, all of that. Then you have your C areas, which are challenging. So those to me are more in the south suburbs where it's a little more challenging. They may work in some areas. You have to really be specific with the neighborhoods over there. Some streets will be great, but then you go a couple blocks down and then it's just, trouble. So those areas can work here and there as well. And then D, I completely stay away from. Those areas are where you just, you're going to deal with tenants that are going to be problems. The villages have high taxes, the townships have high taxes, all of that. So I kind of separate those. So it's important to always do area analysis before you start investing. So in some of the areas where people were sending me deals, they were in C pockets, C areas. Now I know I didn't want to keep the properties there as a long-term rental, but I had no problem flipping it. So I would switch my strategy based on area or based on returns, right? There's some certain flips that I'm like, oh my God, I can make $120,000 just by flipping it immediately. So instead of holding it long term, I like that quick cash, that came in. So, but that's basically, there's a lot to learn. I can't obviously, in a 15, 20-minute time period, I can't go into, all the specifics, but I would say that real estate, I think everybody should have at least 4 to 5 properties, just in case something, you never know where life is going to take you, right? But with real estate, you can leave a legacy for your kids. Real estate, you increase your net worth. So at any point, you have tangible assets, and if you ever need to tap into that tangible asset because something, life changing comes into your life, you have that as a backup. It's cash flow, and it has also great tax benefits. So if you're making income when you have rental income coming in, it's taxed lower. You have the depreciation expense. So even though the property is appreciating over time, you still get the depreciation expense for your taxes. You can also write off all the interest that you pay on your mortgage. You can also write off all the taxes that you pay with those properties. So it's really just a complete win-win-win all over. I've dabbled in stocks. I've looked into other investments. Obviously, people know about crypto and how volatile it's been. But real estate, I know it kind of dips up and down here and there over, a period of 5 to 10 years. But over time, it's always gone up. What properties were worth 20 years ago, it's gone up significantly. So I feel like that's one of the safest investments. And when you have a 30-year mortgage, it doesn't matter if the market fluctuates up and down a little bit, because at the end of the day, your rate is locked. Your tenants are going to be paying your rent. Rents are increasing over time. So it's, because we buy right and we have about 25 to 30% equity in each deal, even if the market dips 10%, 15%, you're still in the positive. So you keep getting that cash flow. So basically, that's kind of in a nutshell. There's going to be a meeting next week where my mentor actually is going to be there. It's Thursday of next week. So if you guys want more information on that, I highly suggest that you register for that event that Tony's actually hosting, Tony and Greg are hosting. And, I'm going to open up for Q&A, but before I do, I really want to stress like how important it is. And Chicago is still one of the hottest markets to invest in. The rents just keep going up. And a lot of people from out of state are afraid to invest in Chicago because they have this thing where, oh my God, there's just so much violence going on in the Chicago area. I would never go and invest in Chicago. So that's a good thing for us because we know which suburbs to invest in. The way the media displays, there's certain pockets in Chicago that are troublesome, right? But there's definitely areas that could totally make lucrative deals with. So, but now I'll open it up for Q&A. Oh, before I do, I wanted to tell you guys also as well that anybody that newer into real estate, so please order my book because that'll give you guys more case studies of my deals, and also have a course called Getting Primed for Real Estate Investing. It's an online course. I also do Zoom calls with it as well. So I have 9 modules with different, gives you terminology, the mindset, doing some calculations, all of that incorporated. And then there's also with the course a 3-day event in November that's live in Chicago. It's kind of like a little boot camp that you'll be able to put everything you learn into action. Okay, now I'll open it up for questions if anybody has any.
Okay, so first off, can everybody unmute? Everybody unmute here for a moment before we do questions. So let's see, does everybody unmute? And let's give Farrah a standing ovation for an awesome presentation.
Yes, thank you,
Awesome,
Farrah, so much.
You're welcome.
Good deal. So I see some hands up. So I'm gonna try keep this in order. So Drew Ross, I saw your hand up first. So what is your question for Farrah?
Yeah, Farrah, I have like a 2-pronged question. Thank you for your presentation. So you talked about how you had like an OG investment strategy, and then you moved into like more of an Airbnb model. So how would you determine like what investment property is going to fall into one of those categories? Like, how do you know if it's going to be an OG where you're just buying it and then rehabbing it and then renting it, or you're going to take the Airbnb approach? And
Mhm.
then how does your marketing strategy compare for both of those different types of structures?
Okay, so going to your first question, and then I'll ask you what you mean by marketing strategy
Okay.
when we go into the second one. So basically, my strategy with Airbnbs is I make sure that they're in either like A or B plus areas, and that there's houses that have things around them, right? So like families are living around. So for example, um, you'll be surprised, but they're just in like everyday suburbs. Like I have some in, I have a lot in western suburbs. I have one in the Homewood area. So where a lot of my clients or customers are people who are coming in for, I don't know, somebody had a baby shower, so the family's coming in to visit. There's weddings, there's funerals. People have jobs in the area, so they're corporations that are leasing. I have people who are looking at Airbnbs that maybe their house came into like a fire or whatever it is. They're looking for something more long term. Also, people who are having their house remodeled, their floors are being redone. Like every single weekend is absolutely is booked. I mean, until November, December on my Airbnbs, and then people are coming to town for the holidays. There's concerts, when the Taylor Swift concert and this concert, and there's a whole variety of reasons why people are booking these. And I think that people do that because people like to stay with, when you go to a hotel room, you're in your room, and if you want to hang out, go to the lobby, right? But with an Airbnb home, when there's a couple families together, they want to all, be together, eat together in an environment that's like homely. So that's kind of where the market is. So it just kind of, depends. You got to do a little bit of a research, but yeah, A and B plus areas are better.
Okay, cool.
Drew, great questions, man.
Cool.
And Farrah, no, thank you for answering.
Yeah, the question
like-
number 2 about marketing, can
Yeah.
you go into what you mean by that? 'Cause
Yeah,
I
so
don't do
like
any marketing.
in your OG, okay, interesting. Because in your OG strategy, like if you have some properties where it's like people are just turning over like on a yearly basis, like how do they find out about, I guess, your rental properties? And for the Airbnb marketing, I would assume it's just on like the Airbnb website.
Yes.
Okay.
So for my rental properties, I have, so once everything is done, we do list it. Well, I do have somebody that helps me rent those out, an agent. So if he has, and he's doing them for a bunch of other investors. So if he already has people that he knows, he's like, oh, I have a family or two looking in this area, then it doesn't need to be listed. He'll just connect, he'll take care of it for me. But if he doesn't, then we'll just list it on the MLS as a rental. And the rental market is pretty hot. So things are always, being taken. I mean, things are being rented within 20, 30 days. So that hasn't been an issue at all. Especially during COVID, during those 2-3 years, it was crazy. People were looking for, the rental market was so hot because people were trying to move out of, there were families that were living together, 2-3 families sometimes, and they were looking to move out. They're looking to move out of apartments just because of the close proximity to other people, and they wanted to go to single family homes. So that's kind of where most people were afraid of, like during COVID. They're like, oh, I'm not going to do any rentals. I'm not going to do any real estate investing. That was actually one of the hottest times to invest and do flips because anything that you put on the market at that time was 20, 30,000 above list, and so people made a lot of money during that time.
Thank you.
Awesome. So we got Don, then John Jones, and I think Lynn. So Dono, your turn.
Okay, Farrah, do you have a property, and I think you might have mentioned this, do you have a property management firm take care of these rental properties for you? Because you said you don't have your hands on in that.
Yeah, so I've managed my own properties until I hit 40 properties. And I know that people are like, wait, how did you do all that? It's because, when you first rehab a home, like everything's pretty much done, right? So you don't have as many problems. And now with technology, if there's ever an issue, your tenant will send you a text, right? They'll send you a text, and then you take that text and you just forward it to your handyman or your plumber or your electrician. So that's all I would do. I would forward it. They're the ones who would physically go out there, take pictures, tell me what the issue was, give me a quote, and then they would fix it, and then I would just sell them. So for a couple of text messages going back and forth, plus back in the days, people would go to the property to collect rent. Not the case anymore. ACH, Zelle, all of that. So for maybe, I would say per property, 30 minutes a month, why am I going to give a property manager 8 to 10% of my, rent? So it didn't make sense to me. And then when I hit 40, it was getting to be a little too much. So I handed it off to somebody in my family who's managing, that I'm paying to manage those properties. And then with Airbnb, that's a completely different story. If you're going to go into Airbnb, you do need a property manager if you're working full-time. Unless you're not really doing anything, then that's okay, because Airbnb is a hospitality business itself. You have to manage the cleaners. You got to make sure everything is, perfect. So for that, you definitely need a property manager.
Mhm.
Great, thank you, Don. Thanks there, Farrah. John Jones, you're up.
Hi, Farrah. I got two related questions. One is, how do you locate appropriate properties to buy? And secondly, are you having trouble finding properties now with high interest rates and high inflation?
Okay, so how do I find properties? I use 70% of the properties that I find are off the public MLS. So I have a search set up. So as soon as a property comes in the range in the area that I buy in, it comes up in my phone, and then I basically just take it from there. MLS, I also have connections with wholesalers. So there's actually people who do marketing. And so they'll either knock on people's doors, they will go and make phone calls to distress, houses that look distressed, houses that have equity, all of that. So they'll do the marketing, and then once they have it under contract, then they give it to me for whatever fee. So I have wholesalers, I have agents who I have relationships with. So sometimes agents, before they list it on the MLS, they'll call me and be like, hey, I have this property coming up. I'm going to list it on the MLS. You want to take a look at it before I list it to see if you want it. So, just a lot of networking and connections. And that's pretty much basically how I find a majority of my properties. Sometimes other investors who can't handle it, maybe they have too much on their plate. If I can handle it, I'll take it over. And we have like this whole network of investors that I belong to. So we're all kind of helping each other out. And that way, and there's properties that I will wholesale to other investors as well. It's like a little ecosystem that we have going. And then your second part of your question was the interest rates. All right, so yes, the interest rates are high, and I'm still finding properties. The nice thing is that even though the interest rates are high, the rents have gone up, so I'm still getting that cash flow. It might be a little bit less, like instead of 500, maybe it's 400, but I still won't lose out on the deal because they're great quality properties. I have equity in them. And then 2 or 3 years from now, or 4 or 5 years, whenever the interest rates go down, I will refinance them and my cash flow will go up. So I'm using that strategy of I'm not going to let go of good quality properties as long as I'm getting about 350 plus net cash flow on those.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thanks, John. Great questions, and Farrah, thank you for the answers. Lynn, did you have your hand up earlier?
Yeah, actually, one of my questions was already answered, so thank you. The other question is, what do you see at this point in your career doing real estate as challenges and opportunities?
Challenges is, for me personally, is that I'm kind of addicted to it and I don't want to stop. So but as far as like challenges, there's always a learning curve, right? You have to get educated, you have to have experience, and probably your first deal or 2 deals, like my first deal, I lucked out and I did really, really well. But from my first deal to my second deal, it took me 9 months to find my second deal because my head kind of got big the first time. I'm like, oh my God, this is so easy. Like, everything worked out. I had beginner's luck. Second time around, you're dealing with there's other competition, right? So I would put a property and make an offer, but then I would get outbid. At the same time, I had a huge challenge because I didn't have any money at the time during my second deal. So I have to be very conservative because sometimes with these deals, if the rehab goes even a little bit over, or the property appraises for a little bit lower, when I'm refinancing it, I'm gonna have to bring $2,000 or $3,000 to the table, which I didn't have at the time. So a lot of times I had to let go of some properties because of my financial situation. Today, that's different. Today, if I have to bring $5,000 to the table, then that's no issue. I'm not going to lose a deal based on that. So, but other challenges I would say for people would be just, making sure that you're buying it right, not getting too excited. Sometimes people are so desperate or excited to find a deal that they don't think logically if the deal is good. So I have to kind of tell people, hey, I know you're super excited and you want to do your first deal, but you're only going to be having $10,000 worth of equity in this deal, and this is not worth it. So I have to kind of bring them down. A lot of it the challenges have to do with the individual person. So as far as not having, enough money, all of those things can be overcome. But what I can't really teach people too much is mindset. I think that's huge. Persistency, and believing in themselves, and stop being the victim. Like, can't be the victim. You have to take every experience as a learning experience and then keep moving forward. And then what was your other question? I think I forgot.
Opportunities.
Opportunities. Oh, opportunities. There's plenty, right? You can invest here in Chicago. I have the property in Indiana as well. You can go out of state. You could do different types of real estate. I kind of talked about all the opportunities. It is like life-changing to be able to free up your time so that you can do all the things that you want to do. One of my dreams is to eventually be a life coach, right? Like, I want to do that. Sorry, I know there's somebody else on here that's life coach. I can't remember your name, but maybe I can learn a thing or two from you. But like something that I don't have to worry about, like, I can put that together, work on it, and not have to worry about the steady income that's coming in. So you can work on your passion. You have time to spend more time with your kids or family or travel or whatever that you'd like to do.
You still get crazy requests at weird times of the day or night, because this is a 24/7 type experience when someone's stove goes out or there's a malfunction in some of the properties?
Actually, you will be surprised, but I have never gotten a call in the middle of the night.
Oh my,
Ever. Yeah.
I'm shocked.
Yeah. If I get a call, probably the latest, it's not even a call, it's usually a text message. And let's just say somebody's toilet doesn't work, right? Like, usually they just wait till the morning to text me, and then I just send the phone over. So it's, I used to think the same way. I'm like, I don't want to deal with like toilets and this and that. Honestly, that's like the least of my concerns. You'd be surprised. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Well, Lynn, great questions. Thank you. And Farrah, as always, thank you for providing phenomenal answers. So we got Lori Oken and then Carolyn next. So Lori, you're up.
Yeah, I'll try to be quick. So your first, I've been in sort of the realtor business, not like you, but working for realtors. Were you a realtor at any time?
No,
Really?
I thought about getting my license, and I even read like a couple chapters, and it bored the hell out of me, and I couldn't do it. But there's no reason that you need to be a licensed agent to be an investor, because you can have access to. There's so many apps out there that you can have access to that you don't have to be an agent for.
Okay, so then my next question is your current target neighborhoods. Like, you've got these 45 properties, but are you soliciting business or trying to get business in a current neighborhood of Chicago? And what is that neighborhood?
So I don't invest in the city of Chicago. I've done a couple flips there. But I don't invest in the city of Chicago because I don't know it well enough. I feel like to invest in the city of Chicago, you have to really know block by block by block or neighborhoods.
Okay.
And because I've grown up, been in the suburbs most of my life, I'm just more so know the suburbs really well. It's probably an opportunity that I am missing. But at the same time, I'm kind of overwhelmed with all the projects that I have. So there's no need for me to go and learn something that I can't even handle. I mean, there are 2 condos that I currently am working on in the Logan Square area that I'm gonna flip. And somebody had brought those to me. I didn't know the area, but I asked a couple people in my group if they knew the area, and they're like, "Oh my God, you gotta jump on it. You gotta do it." So because I had somebody to rely on and tell me how the area was, I did. But generally, I don't go in there. But there's nothing wrong with it. There's people invest in Chicago, city of Chicago all the time. But again, you have to know block by
So-
block, or you have to know that area.
Because you were saying Airbnb, which is really like huge in Chicago. So where are your primary properties?
Mine are in the suburbs, mostly in the western suburbs.
What western suburbs exactly?
Glen Ellen, Lombard, Oakwood Terrace.
Oh. Okay, okay. And those are Airbnb. Like, I'm just, since I've been in like this real estate and my sister and my family does Airbnb and stuff like that, I didn't know that those properties out there did a lot of Airbnb. I know Chicago, where I live, does a lot of Airbnb because there's Lollapalooza and all these other events that go on. I just didn't know Glen Ellen did a lot of Airbnb.
I don't know if they do a lot of Airbnbs, but it's allowed. So, I mean, I have them there. I don't know how many Airbnbs are in Glen Ellen per se, but
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that's terrific. And my last question is who mentored you to do this?
So if you guys are coming next Thursday, Andrew Holmes, his name is Andrew Holmes. He actually has made a bunch of millionaires in the Chicago area, one including me. So he's the one who teaches all of this, like to like a higher level type of thing. So if you guys are available, come next Thursday and you'll get to meet him there.
Okay, okay. That's what I was interested, like, what's the system? Like, how does this work? Perfect.
Yeah,
Thank you
yeah. So
so
Lori, if you go to the chat, I just dropped the Eventbrite link again for the event that we're hosting next Thursday at Lucid Motors in the Goose Island area. So it's like off Division in Elston. So Lori, did you able to see the link in the chat?
Perfect.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
yeah, Andrew's yeah, he's our keynote speaker for next week, and that's Farrah's mentor. So come to the event, you get to meet Andrew, Farrah, and a whole bunch of other couple
I'll
hundred
be
other
there too.
awesome people.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for your vivid assistance.
Okay, cool. Well, Lori, thank you for the great questions. So Carolyn, thank you for being so patient. It's your turn.
Oh, absolutely. Hi, Farrah. Thank you so much for this, by the way. Mine's a real quick question. I know you mentioned you target about $500 a month in cash flow, which I think is awesome. Just curious, is that based on like 25% down payment, or what's your baseline for trying to
I put no money down payment. So if you remember, I talked about like we usually get 100% purchase, 100% rehab.
Oh, you
Loan
still
to us, yeah. And then it appraises for a lot higher when the rehab is done. And then when I refinance it, the lender gets paid off their complete money, and I don't really have to bring, there's nothing down.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I know you said you got started with that, but I wasn't
Yeah.
so.
Oh no, I follow the same formula because the thing is, there's only so much capital that you have,
Sure.
right? So
Right.
I wouldn't be able to build to 50 houses if I had to use my capital constantly. So the whole key is using other people's money.
That's impressive to be able to cash flow that amount, including taxes, insurance, association, the whole bit, like cash flow 500 with no money down.
Correct. Yep.
That's incredible. Wow. Cool. I can't wait to learn more on the 19th. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, good deal. Don back for round 2. Carolyn, great question, by the way.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
This one's real quick. Farrah, are you looking to possibly adopt a son who's probably old enough to be your father?
I'm gonna no comment on that one.
Oh, too funny. Awesome. Well, hey everybody, we got time for one more question before we close this out for the night. So does anybody have one more question for Farrah before we say goodbye?
I'm just gonna say good night and thank you very much, Tony and Farrah, and everybody. Bye-bye.
All right, awesome. Thank you. Thank you for joining
Thank
us.
you. Mhm.
Bye.
So,
I have one question for her. What are the challenges with the higher interest rates that you see today?
The challenges, really the only challenge is, well, there's two challenges. One is your cash flow is going to be a little bit less than, you know, the 500. It might be a little bit less. It might be even 500, but your cash flow is a little bit less. And then the other is that some of these areas, like let's just say you're going to the south suburbs, it's going to be the affordability to make those payments. You know, if you do flips for buyers to buy at that property, it's a little bit harder. So I'm kind of, you know, I'm not doing anything in those areas. If I'm doing flips, it'll be more in like your A, B suburbs where for those people, it doesn't matter if it goes to 6 to 8%, they have enough monthly income coming in that they'll get approved by the bank.
Okay, thank you.
okay, great. So, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the